Hello everyone, I thought I'd make a video talking about monthly pass and the value it gives in these games. Now I'll namely be talking about HSR, ZZZ, and WUWA, as those are the games I'm currently playing, and talking about the amount of pulls that they get per patch on average, and how much a monthly pass affects your patchly pull income, whether or not I think it's worth it, right? So no BS, let's just get straight into it. So for HSR, the average pulls per patch is around 100 to 105 pretty consistently, right? Because you got big patches, sometimes they introduce a new end game or a new game mode that gives jades, and then you have new planets, you have anniversaries, things like these will have like 120 pulls on average, and then the majority of other HSR patches are like 90 to 100 pulls, so it averages out at around 100 to 105, right? So the amount of pulls you get per patch with one of these monthly passes is around 24 pulls per patch, I believe. So you just add an extra 24 pulls per patch if you buy a monthly pass, and man, that feels good, right? Because for example, in HSR, this basically means that every single patch going forward, no matter what, you will always obtain 100 plus pulls, even on the most filler patches of a version. Very, very big for a lot of people, especially considering how strong copies in HSR are these days, how much they're shilling like full team comps, and the fact that the Lycone banner is still 75-25, so you can lose on it. Getting a monthly pass in HSR, I think, is going to have the biggest effect as compared to these other games that I'm going to be talking about, simply because the gacha system is slightly outdated in my opinion, and just how valuable copies of characters are, right? Like, you get an E1 My Day, it's a new character. You get an E2 Phanon, he's more than twice as strong. You get an E2 Evernight, well, more than twice as strong. Like, it's genuinely really, really disgusting, and there's basically only one WUWA character who is comparable to HSR characters in terms of copy investment and power, right? Now, moving on from HSR, let's go quickly over ZZZ. So for ZZZ, it's actually a little different. You don't really get as much from a monthly pass in ZZZ as you do in a game like HSR percentage-wise, because ZZZ actually has the highest pull income out of all the games I'm talking about here. I believe their average pulls per patch is like 120 to 130, right? So with 120 to 130 pull average, and upcoming Yeshun Guang Void Hunter patch, so that's probably going to be a big one, which increases it more, right? You aren't getting the same percentage, right? Because technically speaking, HSR with its like average 100 pulls per patch, and you get 24 pulls per patch with a monthly pass, that's like 25%, right? You get a 25% increase on your pull income. However, that doesn't really apply here in ZZZ. So you get like an average of 120, 130 pulls, and then you're getting 24 pulls extra every single patch. That's like in the 20%, 15 to 20% in terms of increased pull income, which isn't really that crazy, right? Now, I will say there's a factor not being taken into account here, which is obviously a game, if a game is more generous, you're gonna feel more like wanting to support them. So I'm not by any means saying it's like a bad thing to support ZZZ. I'm just saying the value buying a monthly pass in it isn't as much as it is in something like HSR, since in HSR the pulls are a little more scarce. However, nonetheless, it's going to be really nice to be getting that extra 20 something pulls per patch, because if you do that, well, you take the average pulls per patch in ZZZ from 120 all the way to near 150, and once you're hitting this 150 mark, you're already almost guaranteeing 2 5-stars every single patch, which means you're guaranteeing a limited almost every single time, so long as you milk as many pulls as you can, which is really, really fucking valuable, right? Being able to guarantee a limited character, not just hit a 5-star, guarantee every single patch, that has insane value in my opinion. So that's actually not something I really thought of before. So if that's something that really interests you, and it's only, you know, $5 a month, I'd say go ahead, right? Now, moving on to WUWA. Now, WUWA, technically speaking, gets the exact same fucking pulls as HSR, right? I've already made a bajillion videos on this. They legit almost have the exact same pull income per patch. But WUWA has the added bonus of having not only a guaranteed weapon banner, but also 10 less hard pity on the character banner, which also means the soft pity is earlier. So you just get characters earlier, right? So in WUWA, your soft pity will usually start at, I believe, like 64, right? In HSR, your soft pity will usually start at 74. So completely different, 10 pulls less. If you lose 50-50, you can possibly save up to 20 pulls in WUWA as compared to HSR, right? This means that getting a monthly pass in WUWA, in my opinion, I would highly recommend it because it ends up being the exact same situation as ZZZ. The average pull income per patch in WUWA, rounded out, is around 100 to 105. You add an extra 24 pulls to that, and now you're near the 130 mark every single patch, right? 130 pulls is about 65 pulls for every single 5-star, and 65 pulls, as mentioned earlier, is already at soft pity. So you have a genuinely solid chance of being able to guarantee a limited character every single patch in WUWA if you actually invest into monthly pass, which is really, really valuable. Exact same thing as ZZZ, right? Now, the only thing I will say is that in WUWA, the value of, spending on monthly pass and what you get for it isn't that big because of the fact that the game has really slow power creep, right? Like, you might find this crazy, but genuinely, the only character whose teammates I'd say are like a must pull and she gets like incredible value from her copies is Cartethia. That's literally the only character in the entirety of this game that ticks off those two boxes, right? Zanny, yes, she really wants Phoebe, but her copies don't really have an insane jump, right? Signature for Phoebe also isn't big. Signature for Zanny, when you have Phoebe, it is a decent jump. A lot of people downplay it, but it isn't like the largest as compared to a lot of signature jumps in this game, right? So I would say if we're talking about, how much are these pulls going to be game changing, right? Unless you're incredibly unlucky and these pulls change everything. On average, they aren't really going to be game changing. I'd say the biggest thing the extra pulls in WUWA do, and where I'd probably prioritize using them, is on weapons, right? I think everybody's aware of it at this point. If there's one thing about WUWA that has become incredibly predatory as of late, even compared to other gacha games made by Hoyo, it is the signature weapons. The rate at which they're increasing the value of signature weapons for some characters is disgusting. It's already surpassed the level of some HSR Lycones, and so I would highly recommend for a lot of characters, even amazing ones such as Prolova especially, you use that extra pull income to try and pull more weapons often than not, right? You don't have to by any means, and you can use this pull income however you want. However, meta wise, that's probably where I'd prioritize it, right? So we've talked about monthly pass in every single game, the value I think it has for those games, and as well as the pull income per patch for every single game and how much the pulls from a monthly pass affects it. Now, to really put the nail in the coffin, let's finally talk about how much better the monthly pass is than buying direct currency in these games. And man, it's not even fucking close, right? So if we go over here to the Wish section and the shop, and we go to purchase, right? So you can see here you get 12,960 Lunite, and I believe it's basically the same across all the mainstream games I'm talking about right now. And that's about 80 pulls, right? That is about 80 pulls worth of currency, and wow, that fucking blows, right? $100 for 80 pulls of currency, and keep in mind this is with a one-time extra bonus. Whenever you buy it more often, the amount of currency you get becomes even lower every single time, right? A monthly pass giving you 24 pulls per patch, and there being 8 patches in a year for most of these gacha games, means that you do usually end up getting around 192 pulls every single year while spending $60 a year, assuming $5 USD for every single pass, right? So that is 192 pulls, near 200 pulls a year for $60, when 80 pulls is 100 USD, and the amount of pulls you get from buying, direct currency becomes worse and worse the further you go. So for example, you get 80 pulls now because of a one-time bonus. However, if you buy again, you'll probably only get 60 pulls. So now you're at 140. And now the bonus is even lower, probably giving you 50 pulls, and that puts you at 190. So basically, you need to spend $300 USD on direct currency in these gacha games to compete with a $60 monthly pass, right, over a year's time. Now, I understand most people aren't going to be logging in literally every single day, so that 192 number might be a little unrealistic, but it's still such an insane lead value-wise over buying direct currency that I have to say this is the best way to support these gacha games while also not breaking the bank. You pay $5 a month, you get 25% increase on average for your pull income in most games other than ZZZ, and you just vastly exceed the value of anything else that the game can provide you. And so you feel good at the end of the day, right? Technically speaking, it's still FOMO, right? It also helps them keep player retention with the monthly passes as compared to the direct currency, where you cannot play a game for fucking 12 months, come back, and then drop an insane amount of money on it. But then again, at the end of the day, if you are one of those people who does that, do you really even enjoy the game, right? And I'm saying this as someone who has dropped currency on like HSR and stuff. The only reason I've dropped real money on HSR for direct currency is because I genuinely play the game all the fucking time, right? Like I'm 2 years in on making content on this shit, and it doesn't feel any worse for me, right? So if you are one of those people who just doesn't play the game and only comes by like 1 or 2 times every year to spend direct currency, I mean, big ups to you. Thanks for supporting the game, but I don't really understand why you're doing that, right? So for most, I would recommend just getting the monthly pass. Love you all. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great night, and peace out.